All right, as we start to get towards the end of our Module 5, I want to spend a little bit of time doing a little bit of a flashback, so a little Flashback Friday activity. So what you're going to do today is actually watch this quick little video. I'm just going to real briefly go back over all of the topics that we've covered so far, and then what you're going to do is you're going to receive a packet, and you're going to complete that packet, and it is completely a review of everything that we have done so far, modules 1 all the way up through module 5, to just kind of refresh your memory so that we're not ending up in the midterm and you haven't seen this content since the first benchmark. So we want to kind of make sure that we're understanding the content and building upon that content as we go through. All right, so just a few instructions for this video lesson. What you're going to do, watch the video and answer the questions throughout that video. Once you're done with the video, then you're going to go and get your packet from the teacher. When you answer your questions, you need to pause the video, write down the question, and then answer that question on your own notebook paper. All right, topic number 1. So the very first thing that we talked about when we started talking in biology was Sternger, so the characteristics of life. So synthesis, transport, excretion, respiration, nutrition, growth and development, reproduction, and regulation. So synthesis means to make. Transport means to move. Excretion is to get rid of. Respiration is to take glucose or take food and turn it into energy. Nutrition is just to receive nutrients. Growth and development, of course, to grow and develop. Reproduce, to continue on or to make more of a particular organism or species. And then regulation is to control. All right, our next topic that we went into, so Module 1 went by super fast. Module 2, or topic number 2, was talking about biomolecules. So the core 4 organic biomolecules needed for life. So the core 4 are carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We can find carbs in things like starches and breads and pastas. We can find lipids in fats and oils. We see an example down in the middle section right here of a whaler actually cutting blubber off of a whale. Organisms use lipids as a source of insulation and protection, as well as a source of long-term energy, whereas carbs only provide us with short-term energy. Proteins, the main thing that we talked about with proteins was that they are the structural and functional units of life. So what that means is proteins have a very diverse kind of role in our bodies or in a living organism. So proteins can be things like hormones. They can be things like enzymes. And proteins actually code for your genetic traits, which is pretty interesting. We'll talk about that when we talk about protein synthesis. With nucleic acids, what you need to know, nucleic acids is your DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid is DNA. Ribonucleic acid is RNA. Both of these contain genetic materials for a living organism. All right, we talked about enzymes a little bit. So enzymes are a biological catalyst, something that speeds up a chemical reaction by actually lowering that activation energy. So we have an enzyme, a substrate hooks to that enzyme at the active site. The enzyme changes just a little bit and actually goes through a chemical reaction and breaks apart that substrate either into two products, or it takes two substrates and combines them into one product. So if you look throughout the diagram, the enzyme has not changed at all. It has not been used up. It can continue to be reused over and over again. Enzymes are recyclable. They fit in that lock and key type of fit. So whatever substrate fits with that enzyme is always going to be the substrate that fits with that enzyme. If you change temperature, salinity, or pH, you can cause the enzyme to actually denature and lose its shape. And therefore, that chemical reaction will not occur as quickly as it should have. And that is why it is so important to keep organisms at a regular homeostatic environment. All right, just a little quick chart just showing you Make sure you understand that without enzymes, you have a very high activation energy. It needs a lot of energy for that reaction to occur. With the enzyme, it actually drops that activation energy down and makes that chemical reaction speed up because it's not using as much energy. It can go a little bit quicker. All right, module 3, we got into cells, and there was a ton of content within this module. So the first thing that we talked about was the difference between what a prokaryotic cell, which is on the left, and a eukaryotic cell on the right, the main difference between them. And that main difference is that the eukaryotic cell has a nucleus to contain its DNA. In a prokaryotic cell, such as this bacterium, we see that the DNA is kind of clumped up all in the middle. There are also some things called plasmids within prokaryotic cells, and plasmids are rings of circular DNA. When we look at a prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, we need to understand that there are a few things that all living cells have in common. 1 is the cell membrane, 2 is the cytoplasm, 3 is the fact that they have DNA, and then 4 that they have ribosomes. So all living things have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, DNA, and ribosomes. All right, after kind of looking at the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, we looked at the difference between plant and animal cells. Both of these are eukaryotic organisms, or eukaryotic cells, because they both have a nucleus. The main differences between a plant and an animal cell is that a plant cell has a cell wall, a large vacuole, and chloroplast. The animal cell has centrioles and has no cell wall to it. All right, across that cell membrane that all living things have, we see a couple different types of transport. So organisms need to maintain homeostasis. Remember, this is like Baby Bear and Goldilocks and the Three Bears. An organism wants to be just right. So the organism is going to work to maintain that homeostatic environment. So by doing this, we're going to see transport of materials back and forth across the membrane. There are 2 types of cell transport. There's passive transport and there's active transport. Passive transport is something called diffusion, and that's when molecules move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. It does not require energy. It is moving down the concentration gradient. We talked about a slide. So going from high to low is very easy. On the other hand, we have active transport, which is moving molecules from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration. That's like trying to run back up a slide. You need lots of energy in order to do that. So active transport requires energy in the form of ATP. All right, the next little bit of cell transport that we talked about was osmosis, which is just diffusion of water. So diffusion is the movement of molecules from high to low. Osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules. So the movement of water molecules from high to low areas of concentration. All right, our cell energy cycle. We refer to it as a cell energy cycle because the products of one are the reactants of the other. So when we think about this, we think about the sun and the rain, and the CO2 makes food and oxygen for me and you. So if you can remember that, if you can remember photosynthesis, you are good to go, because all you have to do after that point is reverse it and you end up getting cellular respiration. So photosynthesis, sunlight, water, and CO2 are all going to produce glucose and oxygen. Cellular respiration is going to occur in the mitochondria. It is going to take the glucose and take the oxygen and convert it into water, ATP, which is our usable form of energy, and carbon dioxide, which is what we exhale through excretion. So we're getting rid of that waste product. All right, make sure that you have answered all of your questions throughout the video. You can also rewind the video and go back and look at those questions some more. At this point, you should go up to the teacher and get your review packet. Have a wonderful weekend.